The first light of morning bled through a corrugated metal door as it rattled upward, spilling a thin blade of sun across mountains of forgotten things. Dust hung in the air like glittering ghosts, and at the threshold stood Sarah Matthews, one hand pressed protectively against the swell of her belly, the other clutching a wrinkled auction receipt worth $27, every dollar she had left. Behind her, 3 children peeked from behind her legs, silent, hopeful, hungry. The storage unit smelled of rust and abandonment, a tomb of other people's memories. "Maybe there's something good in here," whispered 12-year-old Emma, stepping past her mother toward a tarp-covered pile. The crack of shifting glass echoed as she lifted a broken picture frame. A smiling family posed before a grand Victorian mansion, sunlight frozen on their faces. Something about that photograph made Sarah's chest tighten. The house, the woman's eyes, it all felt uncannily familiar, like a dream she'd almost remembered. What connection could she possibly have to strangers in a picture left to rot? But Sarah wasn't here for ghosts or answers. She was here for survival. If there was even one thing inside worth selling, it might mean groceries, rent, or another month before the lights went dark. Yet as she stepped deeper into the shadows, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary find. Some stories don't wait to be told. They choose their storytellers. And this one somehow had chosen her. 2 days before that gamble, Sarah had stood in front of an almost empty refrigerator. Half a gallon of milk, 2 soft carrots. A silence so loud it hurt her ears. The kitchen was small enough that she could touch both counters with outstretched arms, and every surface was buried beneath bills, past due, final notice, urgent. Her husband Thomas had been gone 4 years now. His transport plane had vanished over the mountains of Afghanistan, leaving behind a folded flag, a pension that barely covered rent, and a widow whose strength was wearing thin. She'd held 2 nursing jobs until complications in her pregnancy forced her onto bed rest, then into unemployment. Now she was fighting eviction while pretending to her children that everything was fine. Emma appeared in the doorway, hair a mess from sleep, voice far too calm for 12. "Mom, I can watch Tyler and Lily today," she said, trying to sound responsible. Sarah smiled faintly, hiding the eviction notice beneath a newspaper. "You just focus on your schoolwork," she whispered. That night she couldn't sleep. She watched the ceiling paint itself in moonlight and murmured to the baby inside her, "We'll figure this out." When a friend mentioned a local storage auction where abandoned units sometimes hid valuables, Sarah almost laughed. People like her didn't get lucky. But desperation has its own gravity, pulling you toward chances you'd never take otherwise. So she gathered her last $27 and stepped into that dusty warehouse. Unaware, she was walking into a story that had been waiting decades for her arrival. The sun was merciless the day she and the kids tackled the storage unit. Tyler kicked boxes until dust rose in angry clouds. 5-year-old Lily sang to herself while draping fake pearls around her neck. Emma, ever serious, catalogued everything they found: cracked china, water-stained books, outdated clothes. Hours passed before they uncovered something different. A mahogany roll-top desk, its curves graceful despite a century of neglect. Sarah ran her hand along the wood. Beneath the grime, it felt alive, like it was holding its breath. When she tried to slide the top open, it refused, locked, stubborn, secretive. "Maybe there's treasure inside," Lily whispered. "Maybe junk," Sarah replied, but she couldn't look away. With the help of their elderly neighbor, Mr. Grayson, a retired locksmith with trembling hands, the lock finally surrendered with a soft click. The desk opened and revealed nothing. Just an empty interior, drawers bare, the smell of old paper clinging to the air. Sarah thanked him, tried to hide her disappointment, and later that night, after tucking the children into bed, she polished the desk herself. The scent of lemon oil filled the small apartment, and that's when she noticed it, a faint unevenness beneath her cloth. She pressed once, then again. Click. A section of the writing surface lifted like a sigh, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. The paper was yellowed, the handwriting elegant, looping, deliberate. Each letter was signed the same way, with eternal love, Eleanor Montgomery. Sarah whispered the name aloud. It meant nothing to her, yet it felt like it should. She didn't know it, but that single name was about to rewrite everything she thought she knew about her family, her past, and her future. Sarah stayed awake until the first hint of dawn brushed the window. She couldn't stop reading. Each letter whispered a story too heavy for sleep to bear. They were written by a woman named Eleanor Montgomery, addressed only to "my dearest." The earliest was from 1983, the most recent dated barely 8 months ago. In each one, Eleanor spoke of longing, of guilt, of searching for someone she had lost. She mentioned a trust fund for when you are found, and a promise that whoever she wrote to would never want for anything again. By the time Sarah reached the final letter, her hands were trembling. Who was this woman, and who had she been writing to all these years? Her heart pounded as she opened her laptop, typed the name Eleanor Montgomery, and froze. The first result was an obituary. Eleanor Montgomery, philanthropist and lifelong resident of Cedar Springs, passed away 6 months ago at the age of 87. The accompanying photograph stopped Sarah's breath. It was the same silver-haired woman from the storage unit's photograph. Emma wandered out, rubbing her eyes. "That's the lady from the hospital," she said softly. "The one who gave me hot chocolate when you were with Tyler in the ER." Sarah stared at the screen. Eleanor Montgomery had been a stranger, or so she thought. But something about the gentle eyes in that picture made her feel seen. Just as she began to whisper the name again, her phone buzzed with a text. "I know you bought Eleanor's storage unit. We need to talk about what you found." The message ended with a name, Margaret Wilson. Her pulse quickened. Someone out there already knew. The next morning began with another cruel blow. An eviction notice flapped against the apartment door, red letters screaming "Final warning, 48 hours." That was all the time she had left. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the notice while the baby kicked restlessly beneath her ribs. "We'll figure it out," she whispered again, though this time the words sounded more like a prayer than a plan. That afternoon, determined to sell the desk for quick cash, Sarah emptied its compartments. As she lifted the bundle of letters, something caught her attention, a tiny misalignment in the wood at the back of the hidden compartment. She pressed it, and with a faint click, a second secret panel slid open. Inside was a small brass key attached to a tarnished tag engraved with 2 words, Montgomery Estate. The same moment her phone buzzed again. "Have you found the key yet?" The message was from Margaret Wilson. Panic surged through her. How could this stranger possibly know? Hours later, Sarah met her in a quiet park cafe. Margaret was in her 70s, with kind but cautious eyes. She explained she had been Eleanor Montgomery's housekeeper for over 40 years, and more than that, her confidant. "Eleanor spent her entire life searching for her granddaughter," Margaret said softly. "Her only daughter, Catherine, ran away decades ago and died shortly after giving birth. Your mother's name was Catherine, wasn't it?" Sarah's throat tightened. "Catherine Montgomery," she whispered. The pieces began to fit, like an invisible hand had been guiding them all along. Eleanor's missing granddaughter was her. The next days unfolded in a blur of disbelief and revelation. Margaret revealed everything. How Eleanor had disowned her daughter for marrying a poor military man. How regret consumed her for decades, and how she had spent years funding private investigators in a desperate search. "When Eleanor saw your daughter at the hospital last year, she knew," Margaret said. She recognized her own eyes. Sarah's world tilted. The anonymous Christmas gifts, the baby clothes that had appeared on her doorstep, the medical bill that had mysteriously been paid, all of it had been Eleanor. The letters hadn't been random, they'd been a breadcrumb trail home. With Margaret's help, Sarah contacted Amanda Chen, a compassionate young lawyer who worked at a free legal clinic. Amanda confirmed that Eleanor's estate was caught in probate, with distant relatives contesting the will. "They claim there's no granddaughter," Amanda explained. "But if you can prove you're Catherine's child, everything changes." DNA tests were ordered. The waiting days stretched like years, filled with whispered prayers and threats from unknown numbers telling her to back off. But when the results came, 99.8% confirmed, Sarah wept. Eleanor's estate, her home, her legacy, it all belonged to Sarah Matthews. Yet when she stood in court and listened to Eleanor's recorded message, her tears weren't for the inheritance. They were for the grandmother she never knew. "My dearest Sarah," Eleanor's voice trembled through the speakers, "if you're hearing this, I've found you at last. Live in the house for 1 year before deciding its fate. Let it be filled with laughter again." The courtroom was silent, except for Sarah's quiet sob. "We're home, Grandma," she whispered. "We're finally home." Rain glazed the windshield as Sarah's old sedan rolled through iron gates, flanked by marble lions. The sign above read, "Montgomery Estate," its letters half hidden beneath ivy. The house rose ahead like something from another century, towering, elegant, waiting. Margaret stood on the porch, umbrella in hand, and smiled, as if she'd been guarding that doorway for decades just to say one sentence. "Welcome home, Miss Sarah." Inside, time seemed frozen. Velvet curtains sealed in the scent of cedar and lavender. Portraits lined the halls, eyes following her as if recognizing her return. Tyler and Lily darted through echoing corridors, laughter bouncing off the marble floors. Emma trailed behind, whispering, "It's like a castle." In the study, sunlight pooled over dust-coated shelves and a typewriter still ribboned with half-finished words. Sarah traced the keys with trembling fingers. Upstairs, she opened a door to a bedroom that felt untouched by grief, a vanity with photographs of a young woman, her mother, smiling on her wedding day. "Mom," Sarah whispered, tears breaking free, "you were here." In that moment, the ghosts of regret didn't feel frightening. They felt like family reaching back. For the first time since Thomas's death, hope didn't feel borrowed. It felt earned. Weeks passed in a dreamlike rhythm of discovery. Each drawer, each box told another piece of the story. Hidden beneath the nursery floorboards, Sarah found a chest lined with velvet. Inside lay Catherine Montgomery's diary, the missing bridge between mother and daughter. The entries began with rebellion, drifted through heartbreak, and ended with love for a newborn she couldn't protect. "If you ever read this, my little girl," the last line read, "know that leaving you was the only way I could save you." Sarah pressed the pages to her chest and cried until morning. That day, she decided the mansion would no longer be a monument to silence. Repairs began. Broken chandeliers glimmered again. Children's laughter replaced the creak of emptiness. Neighbors stopped by with stories about Eleanor's generosity, and slowly the Montgomery name transformed from legend to living memory. Amanda Chen helped establish a foundation in Eleanor's honor, a trust devoted to supporting single mothers. "You're turning her wealth into what she always wanted it to be," Amanda told her. Sarah smiled. "A second chance." Late one evening, she stood on the balcony watching the city lights bloom beyond the hills. Wind carried the faint scent of magnolia, the same flower Eleanor had planted outside her daughter's window. Sarah closed her eyes. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice. "You're home now, my dear." Spring came gentle and golden. The Montgomery gardens blazed with life as guests gathered beneath white canopies for the foundation's opening. Sarah, in a simple blue dress, held her newborn daughter, Eleanor Grace Matthews, and spoke into the microphone with a steady voice. "A woman I never met spent her life searching for me," she began. "Her love crossed years, oceans, and silence. Today, her home becomes a refuge for others who've lost their way." Applause rippled through the crowd, but Sarah's gaze drifted upward to the balcony where sunlight streamed through lace curtains. For an instant she swore she saw a figure watching, silver hair, kind eyes, and the faintest smile of peace. That night the house glowed from every window. Children's laughter echoed down hallways, once cold and still. In the nursery, Sarah laid baby Eleanor in the same crib her grandmother had kept ready for a reunion she'd never lived to see. She whispered, "We found you, Grandma, and you found us." The wind outside rustled the magnolia trees like applause from another world. If this story touched your heart, take a moment before you scroll away. Share it with someone who still believes hope can hide in forgotten places. Because sometimes the things we lose aren't gone forever. They're just waiting to be found.